If this goes on, don't panic. Bringing hope to the world through speculative fiction.
Hello and welcome to If This Goes On, Don't Panic. Today we have writer Claire Rudy Foster. So Diane, how are things going?
Hey, it's April when we're recording this. I am in the middle of the April Game of Tones event. I'm taking this one a lot easier. I've decided not to stress about, whether I finished a deadline or, whether any of the lore is done. I'm just, doing what I can, and I'm working out new ways to approach this with the lifestyle changes that I've made. Right. Yeah. So on one hand, things were going really well the first week and, noticed little change except lack of anxiety. Second week, though, I had a bout of insomnia and my productivity has taken a nosedive. I literally got nothing done yesterday, but I did actually have 6 hours of sleep in a row last night. So that usually means that's turning around. So I have high hopes for this week and I'm having fun, which is the best part about it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what about you?
Isn't it great when you're actually being mentally healthy? You're like, oh, I don't have as much anxiety anymore.
It's a fact.
I'm not freaking out about stupid things. It's great.
Yeah, I'm not as irritable, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And I'm not as frustrated. I've got I'm actually genuinely having a good time and enjoying the company of my friends and spending time with my family and, just I think living life in a more real kind of way, which is cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So, yeah. Much better place than it was a couple months ago. So
that's awesome.
How about you? Awesome. Where are you at?
I'm doing pretty good. Let's see. I've had a lot happen since we recorded last. First of all, I want to just let everybody know that I'm kind of sick today. So if I sound weird, it's probably because I have a cold. I'm going to be muting a lot. So to get my coughing out ahead of time. What else? Let's see. One other thing I wanted to mention is we've been kind of teasing secret project that's going on. I just want to let everyone know because I forgot to mention it last episode. That is still happening. Things are going slower than I expected, but we have had some really, really good progress in the last month or so since we recorded our last episode. So that is almost done. It should be done by next episode. I'm kind of scared to say that because every time I say that, it doesn't happen. But I think really it might. Gosh, what else? Oh, I got two other nice changes. We've got a fourth cat now.
Aw. What's the kitty's name?
Okay, I'm going to give you his full name. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Dr. Pipsqueak Thelonious Bailey.
That's amazing.
Because, of course, he's doctor. Of course he is.
Of course. Dignity.
Of course.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
He trained hard for that PhD,
Sweet. What kind of a kitty is he?
I don't know. He's a gray and white one. I think he might be a Russian blue. I'm not really sure. We got him from... I want to say kennel. Kennel's not right. The where they save the cats.
The rescue. Yeah, sure.
Rescue. Geez. Yeah, we got him from the rescue. He's very shy.
Aww.
So it's been a little rough for him to get used to us, and he hasn't been here super, super long. He'll look at us from across the room now, and he'll let us see him now. But we are still not allowed to go near him. So we have to set the food down far away, and then we come back later and it's gone. You know what I mean?
You'll win him over if you're persistent.
Yeah. Oh, we will be. Don't worry. We will be. Because I just want to, give him scratchies behind the ears and snuggle and that kind of stuff.
I think I told you we had two of our cats, gray and white as well, were abandoned barn kittens that my older cat brought home.
Yeah.
Right. He was like, you need to attend these kitties, Mom, because these kitties clearly need taking care of. Right. And it took 8 months or something for Ash to come into the house.
Wow.
But now he is my special baby. Right. He is a mama's boy kitty. He'll just leap into my lap when he wants to snuggle, regardless of what I'm doing. He's just like, "Wah, cat!"
That's
This
funny.
is how much he trusts me. So
That's funny.
you'll win him over.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yep.
I hope you get there with him. We'll see,
He will. Just be patient.
Yeah, I think we will. And then the only other thing going on with me really is, and I'm pretty proud of this. Everybody on here knows that I practice Tang Soo Do, which is a Korean martial arts, very similar to karate, or it's a subtype of karate, really, if you want to be specific. I am now the rank below black belt, where I go
sweet,
like red and black belt. So yeah, I just got it. Unfortunately, I'm probably not going to get my black belt on time because I also have tendonitis along with a cold. So I'm like all laid up and everything. You know what I mean? So
getting old, Alan, falling apart.
Oh God, middle age has just like punched me in the face in these last few years. There is no doubt about it.
We were joking, I think, before we opened here, we were joking about a line that I like from Lois McMaster Bujold again, right? I hit 40, 40 hit back.
Oh, dear God. Sadly true. Oh my God.
Well, that was 9 years ago, young whippersnapper for me.
Well, yeah, it hasn't gotten better since 40. Let's see. Our listeners probably don't know because I don't talk about my age very much, but I'm 45 now. So, yeah.
Oh, you're not that much younger to me. Yeah. It's on the way. Yeah, I get the big 5-0 next year.
Oh, boy. Yeah. That's rough. That's rough. It happens to us all, though, right?
50 going on 5. That's me.
Oh, yeah. No, I understand that completely.
We're both obviously in a good mood today, so this should be a really fun conversation. Let's get started. I'm sure our guest would really love to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's bring our guest on. Our guest today is Claire Rudy Foster. We'll be right back. Okay, and we are back. Today we have Claire Rudy Foster. They are a queer, non-binary trans writer who lives in Portland, Oregon. Foster's writing has gone viral and appears on NPR, in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Rumpus, McSweeney's, and many other journals. Foster is a 4-time Pushcart Prize nominee who has been longlisted for the ALA Over the Rainbow Award, the Forward Indies Award, Speculative Literature Foundation's Working Class Writer Grant, the NLA International Nonfiction Writing Award, and the SIFWA Writing Award. Yeah, SIFWA, woohoo! Yay! We're here today to talk about their debut novel, The Rain Artist, which came out in February of this year. This noirish dystopian fiction imagines a future without rain and exposes the links between billionaire depravity and climate destruction. Wonder why we wanted a person on.
I wonder, right?
Right? I know. Foster, you were basically born for this podcast, so thanks for coming.
It's nice to be included.
Great.
Appreciate it. So I was getting tired of reading your awards. No offense. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah, running out of air there. That's great.
I know, right? A lot to do in one breath.
Way to go on the nonfiction career listings there. That is quite the impressive resume.
Thank you. Yeah, they do start piling up after a while. I've been writing seriously or writing to support myself for a while. And I mean, along the way, you kind of meet some people. So yeah, it's weird hearing it read out loud.
Yeah, I bet.
Awesome.
I never think about them unless I'm doing it.
Yeah, we'll get there someday. We were Hugo long listed last year.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I'm so proud. Can I say, just since that came up, thank you to our listeners. Thank you guys for your overwhelming support. It really means a lot to us. I was so honored to be within shooting distance of the spaceship, and you guys are the best, right? And we wouldn't be here without you guys putting us forward, nominating us, listening to what we do. Thank you. I love this podcast, and I'm really glad that, it seems to be finding an audience that resonates with it, and I love it. So thank you. Okay, sorry. had to get out of the way. It's sincere. I was just so tickled. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're gonna be longlisted this year, and I think we were really close to nomination. So I don't have the facts behind that yet, but we'll see.
Nice to hear. crossing my fingers. Let's hope.
Yeah.
You never know, right?
Yeah.
You never know what people are going to do. And it's also, it's all people's personal opinion. And, but I can hope, right? So I'm hoping.
Absolutely. So let's get back to Foster. Foster, tell us like your origin story. Like, why did you decide to become a writer? Why do you like writing? When did you decide to become a writer? That whole
as
thing.
much as you want, Alan does not realize that what he's asking for is your life story, but it's fine.
Speaking of incriminating, you're asking for my villain origin story.
Absolutely.
Yes, exactly.
Oh my gosh. I will keep it brief. My first love is books. I always have been a reader. I read at a young age, and I was raised by people who loved to read. In the evenings after dinner, we would sit around in the living room and read together. We went to the library every week, books and reading and talking about writing and talking about stories and telling stories was just part of how I grew up. So, much like any addict, if you can manufacture your own stuff, why would you buy it somewhere else? And I just loved that books would transport me, wherever I was, I could open a book and it would take me away. And I chased that feeling. And I hope that The Rain Artist gives that feeling to other people of familiarity and disfamiliarity that is transportative.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I guess let's talk about The Rain Artist then. The Rain Artist kind of has an interesting story of its own outside of the actual story itself. It started as a short story and then you developed it into a novel. So can you talk about that a little bit? Why did you decide to develop it into a novel? And well, we'll start with that first.
A friend of mine who was the books editor at the Oprah magazine reached out and said, we'd love a piece from you. We'd worked together before. She said, we're doing a new, like a featured fiction thing. Got anything? And I said, yes. Full disclosure, I've, as you read in my bio, like a lot of the stuff that I've been recognized for or my focus over the last, 10 years has been mostly nonfiction because that's where the money is. Right. There's the money in, for me, like the money is in memoir, it's in personal essays, it's in reported essays, and it's in ghostwriting. So anytime someone wants my fiction, I'm like, yes. Say it again.
Yeah.
So she hit me up for a story and I had been kind of, percolating with this one. I sent over what would become The Rain Artist and she loved it. This was about 7 or 8 months before the pandemic. And when that happened, when the shutdowns happened in March of 2020, all of a sudden, like many other people, I had time to stew.
Right.
And the story, I think, was published around that time or a little bit after. And it just, as good as I felt about the writing and, especially the editorial guidance that I got, the reader response, it just felt incomplete. When I was younger, I was just really obsessed with short story form. And like, again, full disclosure, like, just like with the nonfiction, like I'm a deeply nerdy writer.
Awesome.
I'm a very nerdy. I read, you know what I'm saying? It's like, I read like a watchmaker. Like if I read something that I like, I'm like, how did you do that? Let's take that apart. What is the technique? Where did this come from? What were you reading when you wrote this? I go really deep in like the liner notes of what I'm working on and what I'm reading. So, I was looking at some of my older fiction and I had studied short story form and like, read really widely, a lot of different authors from different countries and different, time periods, different influences. And I'm like, my short stories, like they just feel like they kind of build up to a point and then drop off a sheer cliff. And I thought, what happens after this moment? What happens after they get in the van? What happens after they get back to the studio? And so I started kind of playing with that. And as I, pushed a little deeper into this imaginary New York, a lot of the other science fiction influences and, and just literary influences that I had been reading and kind of playing with, it all started to gel. And I realized I had entered a world of my own imagination, which was so exciting. It was so exciting.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Why not follow up? I've got time. And over the next couple of years, this book came out. It was the first thing I've written not for money and only for fun since I was in middle school.
Oh, wow.
And so it felt very important to me personally to just go for it. You just enjoy every moment and just like lean into the storytelling part of it. Because I as a, professionally, like I so rarely get the opportunity to just have fun. And this was fun.
Yeah. Oh, great. I could tell that you were having fun while writing it. What was your process of developing it from a short story to a novel? Like, did you do anything special? Like, did you have to rewrite any of the stuff that was there before? Like, what was that like for you?
For folks who do write short fiction or like flash fiction in particular, that shit is condensed.
Mm-hmm.
I love, what I'm saying? Like, I love short fiction because there's just so much happening, within, like, I'm thinking particularly of like Ray Bradbury's short stories. It's like, you can have a story that's 5 paragraphs long and there is everything in that story. There's world building, there's character development that happens in half of a sentence. The plot is almost incidental to the amount of like work that's going on below the surface. So, for me, with the original short story, I did spend a lot of time unpacking that and just, teasing out the different threads. I would take 1 or 2 sentences at a time and kind of zoom out. Like, okay, how did we get here? Where does this come from? Can I explain this element? And as I followed those kind of threads or those roots out of the original story, again, like I learned more and more about what I was making. Like the logic of world building has always really fascinated me. So, it's like, okay, if it doesn't rain, how do you grow food? What kind of food can you grow? Where is it grown? What's the carbon footprint of that? Who works in those places? How do they survive? And I would say that for me is one of the things that's most attractive about sci-fi in particular is that literary fiction, like hardcore old school literary fiction, they never talk about money.
Facts right there.
These are some John Updike people next to the pool, You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Muffy, the check.
I may have made a similar comment recently in a recording we did.
I mean, they don't talk about money, but I had just read this and reviewed this incredible anthology, the World Sci-Fi Anthology, the first volume.
Yeah. Hands
down, like so good from the intro all the way through. And every single one of those stories had to do with money.
Lavi Tidar, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's great. He's great.
Yeah.
It just doesn't pull any punches, which I also appreciate. And so thinking about like how money works, it was a really deliberate choice to talk about rain and water because that is literally currency. It has a current and money flows like water flows in this world, which is not so different from our own.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. I really like it. I think that makes a lot of sense. And you're right. Like I've noticed that money class in particular is not something that tends to get acknowledged much at the literary fiction level. And when they do, it's almost like poverty porn. It's like, oh,
right.
It had such a hard life. Let's read the story and feel better about our own lives, right? It's not really thinking about like the common working person's problems or, people who are in poverty, right? I spent a lot of my life in poverty, so I think about it a lot, right? I like to say I'm a working class writer. I totally understand going where the money is. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I feel what the song you're singing. So I have not yet read your book, but I want to. It's definitely my cup of tea. It's just life has been crazy. But yeah, so I love the issues that you're dealing with there, and rain in particular being kind of the metaphor, right? Like, like the overall theme, trickle down economics and stuff like that, right? I can see the connection there. I think that's a beautiful choice.
Well, thank you.
I just realized that you have like this imagery pun at the very end of your book. So, spoiler here, real quick, but I just realized that at the end of the book, you make it rain.
Making it rain. We're making it rain over here. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I mean, because they literally go to his, I don't know what you would call it, like a state / park / I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a rain machine, right? He turns it on, and then things happen, and it gets left on, right? I won't make this a complete spoiler. It gets left on, and then it starts raining, right? And using that the metaphor that you're using there, so you're making it rain, and that kind of, I don't know. I just thought that was funny. It's a really cool story. I do love stories that take on billionaires. In your opinion, what is the role of billionaires in our world or our society? And should we even have them at all? In addition, like how rich is too rich? Like, where does this stop?
I love this question. Billionaires are parasites. Period.
Love it. Yes.
A billionaire is too rich. It is, period. Like, in what I would call like a previous age, like Diane mentioned, when you have this like poverty porn, which is essentially like the middle class glamorization of the uplifted poor person or like the perverted poor person. From that same period, you have this concept of like the elevated wealthy person. Mm-hmm. And this is okay, I'm going to go a little cuckoo here. So this is so much, in my opinion, like a perverse, like uniquely American perspective, because in the United States, from its founding, we have the manifestation concept, like where if you are spiritually blessed, if you are a good Christian, if you have prayed appropriately, it's a very pagan idea. If you have prayed appropriately and made the correct sacrifices and the correct behaviors, God will reward you with money, because under capitalism, that is all that matters. And so there was this idea that if you were wealthy, it was because you were very spiritually sound, which, as you and I know, is not true. Wealth is accrued through theft and, taking advantage of other people. It is stolen. It is hoarded. It is it's taken out of the current. Money is intended to be exchanged. Like money is supposed to change hands. A billionaire only becomes wealthy by taking what should be for everyone and keeping it for themselves. So they are parasites. None of them work. None of them understand how to live normal lives. And they demean the systems that, could be really awesome to benefit all of us by, basically finding a loophole that serves themselves. So to me, this is the most spiritually depraved person that there could be. My last book came out 2 years ago. This is a book I wrote with Ryan Hampton called Unsettled. And this was a nonfiction book we wrote together about the Purdue Pharma bankruptcy. Mm-hmm. And if you want to hear about billionaire depravity, I suggest you pick up this book, because it is about the Sackler family and how they made literally billions of dollars by getting people addicted, knowingly getting people addicted to OxyContin, and creating a massive market. There's a lot about that. I think, there's a lot of literature around this. I was able to read their private text messages. This is evidence that was never admissible in court and is now held in an off the record, like vault, essentially. I was able to read their text messages. I was able to read their emails. They knew. They made so much money off of killing people and making them sick. And having seen that, I'm like, I don't care how many wings you give to the fucking museum. I don't care how many Egyptian statues you purchase to share with the people like you have, murdered. Like, this is evil. No amount of philanthropy will ever vindicate a billionaire. I think that, people can keep money. They can, have a home that they own, that they can, give to their children. Everyone deserves a college education. But once you start making your living off of other people's suffering, I think you would become a criminal. I think that it's a complete betrayal of everything it is to be human. And in my book, I absolutely make that clear. I do not write sympathetic villains who are billionaires or higher, because they do not deserve to be, humanified, I guess. Like they don't deserve that. They are bad people. I have heard their phone calls. I have read their emails. These are not good.
Wow, that's
you're the first person I think I've met who feels clearly as adamantly angry about this whole business as I do. Yeah,
right.
it's good to have confirmation, right? Like, I have not read their text messages and emails, but I am not at all surprised, because you're right. They cannot be unaware
but
of the suffering
right?
they're
Like
causing.
you can,
My brother
right.
died of a fentanyl overdose that was laced in whatever he was taking.
Yes.
I am, these people just better hope I never catch them in a dark alley. Say that.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I mean, I have, first of all, sympathy for your loss. That is so unfair. And I wish that more people would connect these like so-called policy failures or these quote unquote accidental overdoses with this is a direct action of the people at the top.
Totally is.
This is a direct action. This is not like, oh, the government didn't protect us. The government is complicit because there is money to be made in letting a billionaire have their way. You know what I'm saying? But,
To be fair, the current provincial government, right, and health falls under provinces in their jurisdiction in Canada, right, has a policy where they are basically ignoring everything else to go after the fentanyl epidemic, and they are doing harm reduction as opposed to, persecution as a policy. And I'm 100% behind it. I think that's exactly the way to handle it.
That's great.
To be fair, not all government is evil.
Yeah.
But yes.
No, not all government. But, I do agree with you. And when I say government, I mean, I can only speak to the U.S. government, which has this problem. Harm reduction does save lives. And I think, again, like I have worked with Ryan Hampton, who's a recovery advocate in the States. Our next book is about the fentanyl crisis here and how to potentially address it. Harm reduction is a pillar of that, not because it's like a top down, like, hey, we are, here's the president or here's the, the prime minister or whatever gifting you a naloxone. Here you go. Like no hand comes out of the sky. Harm reduction becomes effective when it's built within communities. So when you have someone or who seems approachable, who's like sharing these resources, like that is how you save lives. And it is incredibly effective, especially when there are long-term supports like housing, healthcare, all of these other like necessities that make life worth living.
Over and over again, you see the results. There are literally thousands of studies now, right, that support this. And if people genuinely wanted to do something about the problem, the evidence is more than there, right? But politicians, and this happens in Canada too, right? So, they're not saints up here, right? They want to scare people. They find, because then they get support so that they can, extend their power and keep taking the money behind the scenes. And that happens in Canada too. It's harder to do here, but it happens. What happens here is that politicians make deals with corporations. And then after their term of service is done, they end up on boards of directors that you never saw them being on. You know what I'm saying? Right. Their background does not support, and they make millions of dollars a year in salary. Right. So yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's so valid that, there is an element of like corruption throughout my book. So this is on topic. But no, I completely agree. And Diane, like, I wish more people would talk about that, like the inappropriate cross-pollination between things. It's like if you are in a position of power or like in public service, I think that there should be some rules about whether or not you can hold such positions. Like, I don't think you should be able to be on the board of a pharmaceutical company. I don't think you should be able to trade stocks. I think, I mean, again, like this idea far predates the concept of like the spiritually elevated millionaire or billionaire. But if you look back at like the Roman Empire, for example, and granted, their propaganda was off the chain. Like, Caesar Augustus was on his shit in the bag, manufacturing full time like state propaganda. But, but they did have these leaders. There was an emperor, I think, named Cincinnatus, who was a soldier who had retired from the war, because Rome was like the United States in constant war. He had retired and become a farmer, but he was such a virtuous man that his friends and compatriots in the city called him back and they said, listen, we really need someone impartial. We need someone who has, leadership skills and a strong sense of service to come and help Rome. And he was begrudgingly dragged out for a 2-year term. And as soon as the term was up, he's like, you know what? Deuces, I'm going back to the farm. And he refused to continue. And I think that while that may be a myth to some degree, I think that spirit of service is what we need in people who have power. Is you have to be willing to give up your power. It shouldn't be a career. For me, in an original version of the story that would become The Rain Artist, I also talked about these sort of political dynasties, which, in the United States is we have the Clintons, we have the Bushes, we have these very powerful, I guess in Canada, Trudeau,
right?
We have these very powerful political families like Kennedys, who just keep popping up and, they end up being president or they take on senator positions and they're almost running on the brand name of their last name or their family name. And it's I don't know if that's appropriate, man. Maybe I should go pump gas for a couple years,
Right.
I just don't think it feels too much like a monarchy to me. And, we fought a lot of wars to not have that.
Aristocracy, right? So,
right. Or an oligarchy. This is not, sorry, we got dogs, but this is not what I signed up for.
Right. Yeah. 100% agree. Oh man, you said so much stuff in there that I kind of want to dive into. I got so many different questions. First, I think we're going to go back to the story a little bit, if that's okay with everyone. If I were to dissect your novel, one way I might dissect it is to cut it into 3 parts, right? There's the initial part where everybody is kind of living their normal lives. The Rain Artist is trying to dispose of this rich guy's body, right? Which happens very early on. So that's not a big spoiler.
That's not a spoiler.
And then there's the second part where they're running away, right? They're running away from the cops and the authorities. And then there's a third part where they I've already mentioned it, they kind of find the rich person's estate and all this, right? The part that fascinates me the most is that middle part. I almost feel like they went from a science fiction story into a fantasy story and then back into a science fiction story again. What were your thoughts around writing that middle section? They went into the underground. Basically, they went to this cave, right? And there was this whole society there. And they were not quite human, I think, especially their leader. So I'm just wondering, where your mind was going with that part and maybe what your influences were for that part too.
That's a great question. I really loved, one of my influences, if you can call it that, is The Wake, which is I would call a fantasy sci-fi speculative novel written from the perspective of a Saxon peasant during the time of the Norman invasion in 1100, which I highly recommend. This is like Cormac McCarthy on LSD.
Wow.
And I think, I started reading sort of epics or poetry that had miraculously survived this invasion, which is the first of many genocides played out on that part of the continent in Europe. And I was just fascinated by the way that the native people, the local people, described invaders. Often it was like an alien. You're seeing this person from another culture who comes in their ship of some kind, and they're ugly or they're dangerous looking, armed to the teeth. You don't know. Mm-hmm. It's you're like me, but you're not like me. And the alienness of that felt very science fiction-y to me. There are some epics that a friend, a medievalist scholar, shared with me that describes these strange giants who came and they had one leg and, huge clubs that they would fight you with. This is a very, very early, proto-Irish epic. And I thought, man, these are aliens. You know, this could be out of a Ridley Scott movie.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that for me, like, the element of fantasy is simply like forgetting that these were once the people who live underground have been there for generations in my story. And so they have lost the melanin in their skin. You know, their bodies no longer use vitamin D in the same way. They're not adapted to live on the surface. And that includes the person in charge, who is an invader on his own. It did feel kind of fantastical to me, but I also thought, you know, if we're talking about a dystopian world that is, you know, ecological in nature, to me, what is horrifying or what is speculative is when you take one of these, like, sort of side quests and, right, it's like, okay, so if we've got no rain on the surface and we've got no sun below, what do people become when you take away something that is an essential resource? Like, essential.
Yeah.
And as we mentioned, like, one of the larger themes of the book is not just corruption, but like the sort of the punishment or the sort of taking, you know, the rapacious nature of capitalism as it refers to the body. So, like, you'll see again and again, like, cannibalism, people eating one another, people eating themselves, you know, things that are sliced and cut open, you know, like, we really are a snake eating our own tail. And so I thought, you know, we've got, you know, from a metaphorical standpoint, we've got my three main characters, like, going into a fallopian tube. Like, they are entering a womb where the elements of the life they live on the surface are just stripped bare. And at the same time, I wanted to make that place really beautiful, because even people in extremis create incredible art. You know, everything, it was important. Yeah. It was important for me to move them from a completely artificial, like, overstimulating, hyper world down into something where it's like every single thing that you can touch, see, taste, everything around you was made by human hands and is made to human scale. So it is also an artificial world, but the scale and the intention is more humane. And I, you know, as I was working during the pandemic to write this, one of the things I missed most was human art. You know, I was, like many others, just, you know, isolated, quarantining, the absence of, like, handcraft. I mean, I think there's a reason we all started making bread and stuff at home, you know?
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, I knew.
Facts, yep.
Right? It's like, like half the people I knew got into weird crafts. It's like, girls, like, we were all doing macrame and shit. So kind of like a sailor lost at sea. I'm like, I'm just making knots until I see the shore again. And, like, I missed that so much. Like, I missed the sewing. I missed, like, pottery. I missed all of these things that I absolutely take for granted in my daily life. So I wanted to put that in my book because I missed it.
Yeah. And you kind of put it in there with your characters too. Two of the characters in the story are artists.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You might be able to make an argument that even Paul was, to some degree, making bouquets and stuff, right?
Yeah.
That was the art at one time.
In his own way.
Yeah. In his own very brutal.
I love Paul. Paul's my favorite. Paul, I mean, I shouldn't have favorites, but Paul is my favorite.
Well, we all do. We all do have favorites as writers. We don't admit it, but we do.
And I thought you did such a great job of making these characters and making them interesting. So the one is an artist who creates umbrellas, right?
Right.
And she's the only person left in the world that does that. Mm-hmm. Then the other character,
Johanna,
that's right, is also an artist, but she's really she mostly works at this office, which is an absolutely horrible place for various reasons, and can't quite get her artist life going, right?
Right. She lacks generational wealth. That is something that the umbrella maker has.
Right.
Celine, is from a legacy of women who have made these luxury items. In a time without rain, an umbrella is basically a museum piece, right? It is purely decoration. There's no reason to have it.
Right.
and so I wanted to contrast her with a much younger woman who does come from, a lower class background, who has bought the lie that, if you work hard and go to the right school and, really believe in yourself, like you can be a working artist. And she's found that dream is not possible for her when the novel begins. She's in deep shit and it's not her fault. I think that there are a lot of artists out there, frustrated, struggling, profoundly gifted. And it's like, what your missing ingredient is generational wealth. You need to win the lottery or you need a doctor who's a father.
Oh, yeah.
As Diane snorts to herself privately here and says something you don't say.
Right? Tattoo that on my butt.
Right. Exactly.
I can just relate from being in the music scene for so long. I played in bands for 20 plus years and so many people I've known are just phenomenal musicians. But, that is probably the hardest. I don't know if it's the hardest. It seems like to me, it's one of the hardest places to move up, and everybody just treads water on the local pub scene forever, like literally forever sometimes.
And you hold, truly forever. And I totally hear you, and you can have these guys who have been just gigging or driving to like fill in for 25 years who are just so gifted. Oh my God. Better than anybody else that are doing like the headlining tours. And it's like, that's how it is, and it's not fair. Like, this is not a meritocracy, which is too bad, because I think that we would all benefit a little bit more if the people who were truly gifted were just supported. Yeah. And if everybody else just had to scrap it. But like, you're right. If you are, and I'm thinking back now to my dissolute youth where I hung out with a lot of garage band types and musicians who were trying to make it. And like, if you have to choose between going to a gig where you might sell like 2 CDs and 10 friends will come and you might get like 20% of the door, or you go to your dishwashing shift so that you can pay your rent this month. Like, that is a very hard choice to make.
I know a lot of people who have pawned their guitars. You know what I'm saying?
Right. It's heartbreaking finding a guitar in a pawn shop. That's just terrible. And I think, I agree with you, Alan, that like it is so competitive. And at the same time, like I feel very, very like blessed as a writer. And I use that term unironically, just because like I'm making my own record of my work. You can find me online, you can buy my book, you can get a piece of paper that has something on it that I made. And it just blows my mind, how ephemeral music is. It's like, I went to this incredible show last week with my best friend. It was Slater-Kinney on their last stop on their US tour in Portland. You know what I'm saying? The hometown. Like, it was such a love fest. This is one of the best shows of my life. And I thought, nobody, unless someone's got their like shitty little iPhone out and they're recording this, like the magic is in the room. You know what I'm saying? Is like that energy is there. You can't capture it. And I was thinking about all of the bands who have stood on that same stage in the Crystal Ballroom, whose work has vanished into the air and into our memories. It's like there is no record. Literally, there is no record of that night. And like, it kind of scares me in some ways. Yeah. We live in a time when people are so focused on like self-recording or, everything's online. It's sort of like auto archiving project that we're all quietly participating in. But like, there are these moments, like these creative moments that they're just gone. Yeah. And I don't know how I feel about that. I have a lot of feelings about that, I guess.
Yeah, I'm kind of overwhelmed with thoughts on that.
I've thought about that a lot, right? Like the fact that we're all recording everything in this ephemeral sort of, what happens when the internet crashes, right? What happens when the internet becomes something else? Is any of this actually going to remain, right? Or are our future archaeologists going to dig us up and go, yeah, we got no record. We have no idea who these people were, Like I've considered that, right? And you're right in that the live experience, which is in a way a ritual that you're participating in, right? It's lost because we're not doing live experiences anymore. We can't. It's too expensive for most artists to do that, right? And the ones who do, right, like it by necessity, just the way the business works, it's also commercialized now, right? Is it really capturing that same moment? I'm not sure it is. I'm sure the Swifties might agree with or disagree with me. Right. But, like I worry about it.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I don't know, for probably at least 10 years of my life, the majority of the shows I went to were people that I knew, or people I've gigged with in the past, or, probably 100 people or less in the room.
That sounds
And
magic.
for me, at least,
I love that.
yes and no. Yes and no. The alcoholism, that was a whole other thing. But
hey, it goes with the territory.
There's someone else who's done music. I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But like since COVID for me, that just has ceased to exist because, well, I personally am, I have some health problems, so I can't like be around a lot of people anymore. A lot, you know what I mean? So like a lot of my life has changed. This whole aspect of my life is kind of gone, and it's just it's like you're saying, it's like this thing that was a major part of my life is just, and I don't even attend stuff anymore.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it takes a lot to get us out of the house now. No, I think that's part of it. I think it's nice that there are some venues that are more accessible, that are still masking, they have better seating. For me, as someone who is in recovery from addiction and alcoholism, it's nice to be able to go to all ages shows. And like the booze is not in your face, you're not going to get a beer spilled on you. See, I've become kind of a princess in my old. I'm like, I used to just like go in the pit and we spit on each other and stuff.
Yes.
And I miss the energy of that, but I don't miss the way that I felt the next morning. So it's been like for me, like I don't know if you have this experience too, but I love going to shows where I can see that the musicians also are getting older. Like they've got different chops. They perform in different ways. Mm-hmm. The way they interact with the audience is different. I got to see a couple of years ago, Tori Amos for the first time.
Tori Amos,
who,
awesome.
Right?
Awesome.
Like,
absolutely.
She is a spiritual experience. Holy shit. She's been traveling with the same two stage musicians. Like, they've been homies for like 35 years or something like that.
Wow.
Right? And as a musician, like at that level of connection, it is like a psychic bond. They don't have to look at each other. Like they are just there and they take you to that space so quickly. The audience is sort of invited to be part of this seance that they're doing. And it's bananas, and that's the thing is like, that's what's magical about music making. And I think that's something that other types of art, especially writing, which can feel very isolating. I think that writers can learn a lot from musicians because like you do want to have that feeling of transportation and lifting up and connecting with this world around you. And it's very hard to do when you're just sitting there at your little machine going tick, 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 tick.
Right.
And, in part, that's the other problem, right? Back to money, back to class, back to, having that generational wealth to support you. And not just the generational wealth, but the connections, right? Because those guys move in their own circle. Often it isn't what you know, it's who you know.
Yes.
And, working class types who don't know any of these people who can move things for you sometimes have difficulty getting into the scene, right? So, and that's any creative field. Music is one of those areas. And, it's like, I guess it's, we're all putting out all our own stuff, right? And in a way that's empowering, because it means that the gatekeeping is over. But on the other hand, nobody has resources to promote, so it's all a big bunch of noise. And how do you get heard above the throng, right? So
that's a really good point. I would ask a question though, because I agree, like when we're all putting it out there, it's like analytics and the follows and the clicks and all that stuff. So I would say, like, as a creator, with a lowercase c, how do you know that you are a success?
Yeah.
Like, what is the benchmark for that?
That's a question that I'm actually asking myself in the middle of my midlife crisis. Okay. I don't know. You know, you're a success. Yeah. I don't feel I've done it yet, whatever it is. So maybe if I had a Hugo, nope. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe we could get that.
Yeah, right.
You could get a Hugo. Why not? We could hang it around your neck.
Yeah, the big heavy spaceship, the albatross. Yeah.
Why not? Why not? Oh, I think it's important to have those bucket list things, though. I mean, I've wanted to be in the New Yorker since I was like 9 years old. You know?
Sweet.
That's funny.
Mean, it's a reach. It's not likely to happen, but like, I don't know. I would say that the degree of satisfaction that I have in my work is much greater now than it was when I was, say, you know, like 25 and just like starting to hack it.
That's cool.
Which is why I said at the beginning, like, it was so weird to hear Alan read my creds again, because I'm like, man, this all feels like it happened to somebody else. I just don't care about acclaim the way that I used to. Like, it's nice to have it on my resume, but I don't feel like I wouldn't necessarily take any of those pieces and say, like, yes, this represents who I am as an artist. Yes, this is exactly what I was going for. You know, as I said, like, I think this novel is probably the first thing that I've really like been willing to stand behind for a while, because it is all me. It wasn't done for profit. It was satisfying to write. And to me, it was just it was a very clarifying experience. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, like if you are in the band, so to speak, and like your 10 friends show up and you sell your 2 CDs and neither of them was to a producer, like, is that, you know what I'm saying? Is that good enough? I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
For you, what's a benchmark of success? You know, that's a good question.
Oh, that's a great question. And I would say that it's getting to have conversations like these. You know, I loved going on my book tour for Rain Artist, and my last book too, Shine of the Ever. I did a much bigger tour, which was I still had all my original cartilage. You know what I'm saying? I could sleep on people's couches and it didn't matter.
Facts. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I've done that kind of tour. I know what you're talking about.
Creaks and cracks, homie. You know, some of us do not come from money.
Right.
You sleeping on the bus tonight, bro? But I love meeting people and talking about the ideas within the work. You know, I'm not a huge self-promoter. I think that the work speaks for itself, you know, and for people who are trying to break in, I think like that it's okay. I just want to say, like, I think it's okay to be like, you know what, my work speaks for itself. I don't think you have to go out and like bang the drum and like be a huge self-promoter to be very, very successful. But I love meeting people who want to have these conversations. I got to go to this place. It's one of my favorite indie bookstores. It's called Red Emma's in Baltimore. It is worker owned. These are all Pinkos. All of their stock. Yeah, it's like if you want to shop on their website and support them, like they do like deliveries to anywhere in the United States and maybe Canada. But they're just great. Like, it's a radical worker-owned bookstore and cafe. Oh my God. Like, they basically have a big living room where you can hang out. You know, people are all masked. There's coffee and snacks. And then, you know, in the back, they've got books. And I had the best, just like hour-long conversation with my friend Addie Sai, who interviewed me for this, you know, this like reading basically. And like, we ended up just talking like we're talking now. And it was magical. Like, I feel so lucky that I get to like, you know, mesh brains with people and talk about, I mean, I love sci-fi because it's about like, science fiction is never about the future. It is always about today. It is always about today. You know what I'm saying?
It's always political. Yep.
It's always political. You know, it has always, you know, dared to go where others flinched, you know, and for someone who's non-binary trans and has been like a real queerdo my whole life, you know, it's a place where like the fluidity or something that's not like boiled down and like, you know, made explicit, like, my weirdness is very much welcome in this space. And so that combination is like, yeah, let's go talk about some anti-capitalist bullshit with some queer people. Like, you can't do that anymore.
A great
Yeah.
afternoon.
That's right. And a good day to you, sir.
That's right.
I just love it. I just love it.
That's cool.
That's awesome. I have so many more questions, but unfortunately, our time is coming to a close. I do have one question before we get to the official closing questions, though. I did happen to look at the cover and say, this is a series. And actually, I may not have read your book if I had known that, because I'm like, I have so many series right now. But I'm glad I did. What's coming next? Are you working on the second book? What's the third book? What's going on?
I am cooking on it. I will tell you to be at peace about your TBR, because this will not be out for a couple of years.
Okay.
I have decided to once again take my time, and I will not be rushing with this next project.
Okay.
I am very excited about it. It is about the world under New York that you referenced in the second part of the novel. So we're going deep. It is not a fantasy. And it is, let's just say that I'm learning a lot about dams and water management. So much learning is happening. So yes, I am working on the next thing. No, it will not be tomorrow. So you can go ahead and read everything else. And when you get to the end of that, I'll be waiting for you.
Excellent. And I'm glad that you're able to take your time and do the right thing. You know what I mean? Get the things to where you want them to be. I know a lot of people we bring on are novelists, either full time or as like a part-time side gig or whatever. And we just had Kate Elliott on. Oh gosh, what was that? I guess that was almost a year ago. Jeez. And she was talking about feeling rushed because, she had to get her next novel out. That's her next thing. She had to get this thing, but she couldn't quite get the ending where she wanted it to be. So she's behind on her deadlines and was having anxiety and stress about it, and all this. And
I mean, isn't it Ray Bradbury who said that he loves deadlines? He loves the whooshing sound they make as they pass him by,
Yep, that's right. Go on.
I don't know, man.
That was the deadline. Oh,
now, whoop, there she goes. I don't know, girl. I mean,
that's funny.
Again, like, to go back to music, like, if it's really that great, the audience will wait. There is no point in rushing literally anything. We are on Earth for a very short period of time, and time is the essential ingredient for all art. And I would rather wait 10 years to read someone's like incredible novel than say like, well, I finished this one. I'm ready to consume the next one. Like, this is why ChatGPT is going to be kicking everybody's ass, is because of the expectation of quick production. Novels do not respond to quick production. That is not writing. That is typing.
You are tempting me.
I love it.
You are tempting me to go on a side conversation here, and my ADHD is very angry.
Alan's like, side quest.
It's very difficult to not go on this side quest. Okay, I'm not going to do it.
I can see you after class.
Yeah, you are.
I'm finding my zen.
Yeah, you are.
I'm finding my zen.
There you go. This is your real black belt test.
Right? You're not kidding. This is probably harder. What is bringing you hope right now?
Dogs. Dogs.
I love it.
Yeah, dogs.
I think it's the first time I've heard that one.
I love dogs. We got a puppy last year, and he's a puppy. And just taking him to the park, like, just dogs are so uninhibited. They're just, when they're happy, and when they're tired, they're tired. And I'm like, when I see people playing with dogs or playing with animals or dogs, rolling around together, it gives me a great deal of hope, that there are other ways of interacting and living life. And like, it just, I don't know. I try to bring that energy to my daily, to just be unabashedly enjoying life. Live your inner golden retriever.
Yeah. That's awesome. For me, it would be cats.
Oh, kitties. I love kitties.
You mentioned about your novel, of course, and then you said you are coming out with another nonfiction book soon?
That's right.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. The title is Fentanyl Nation. It is forthcoming from St. Martin's Press this fall. And it is about the fentanyl crisis and potentially how to address it and end it. This book is co-written with Ryan Hampton, who you can find online, who's just the delight of my life and just a badass recovery advocate. And yeah, this one's like the other two books we've written together. This one's going to piss off a lot of people and hopefully shake things up.
Nice. Good. I hope so too. Is there anything else, like any other short fiction or anything that you're doing, or anything else we should look out for?
I've been kind of messing around with some shorter stuff. I do write film essays for a website called Bright Wall Dark Room. And they are wonderful if you're not familiar. They run long form, like personal and sort of critical essays about different movies. And these are movies that like you can watch at home. These are not all like weird art flicks.
Right.
So it's about like motherhood and Alien,
Right.
Right. Or like just it's great. The people who run it are so sweet. You can read most of the articles for free. If you become a member for like, I don't know, $3 or something, you read everything. But they're great. And I'm hoping to have a piece out with them in the next couple of months. So.
Okay. Awesome. And where can we find you on the internet?
On the interwebs, you can send me a note. I prefer fan mail at clairerudyfoster.com. And other than that, I have a private account on Instagram that is mostly pictures of my puppy. But I'm exiting my self-promotion era, so I prefer notes. I respond to nice people, and I ignore the others.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
I'd be happy to hear from folks who want to talk about writing.
Yep, that's right.
Awesome. So thank you so much for coming on. As usual, I have so many more questions. What we got through was amazing, and we really appreciate having you on.
Yeah, definitely a pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. You are a delight.
And that was our conversation with Claire Rudy Foster. What a fantastic conversation. But before we talk about it, don't forget to share us on Facebook or Twitter or wherever it is you do your social media these days. We really appreciate it. We also, of course, have the Patreon that you can go to. That's patreon.com/ifthisgoeson, and a Ko-fi account, KOFI, for like one-time monetary donations. And we've got a bunch of stuff going on there. I will admit that I need to visit a little bit more often. I've been super busy, but I will get back to it sooner than later. We do frequently have a vote there, though. Our patrons get to pick who comes on a lot of times. So that is definitely something that you will get from joining our Patreon page.
Yeah, if you guys vote for someone, we'll go chase them down and see if we can't get them on the show. So, join up and make your opinion be counted.
Yeah, I'm not always successful, but I usually am. So,
yeah, at least 90% of the time, I think.
I've had a few that just never responded to me or whatever. But anyway, how you feeling about the call? What popped out to you? What's sticking in your head?
Well, that was such a great conversation. Went all over the place. Foster is obviously one of these people I got to pin down, while both of us are ignoring the drinking at a party sometime and, chat about anti-capitalism and the monetary theory and classism and the effects on culture and the struggles of the working class creative, right? Like that's fascinating stuff. Also, they got a point, right? Our listeners know, because that's, you're our people, right? You know all about the struggle with water rights, and you know all about the dangers of climate change, and how, like, I was watching a news broadcast not too long ago where there is I think it's in Colorado, right? There's been this drought for forever. The Colorado River's drying up, right? There are people who are buying land there with the intention of speculating on water rights.
Yes.
I'm like, what the fuck is the matter with people that they would do that? And furthermore, why are we allowing this, right? Yeah. There are things that are basic to human survival that we should be legislating out of existence. And I know why. It's because corruption in the legislature. But guys, I'm appealing to you right now. Listen, right? Like, do you really want the end of the species? Because this is what we're looking at here. You're going to speculate on water rights. Like that's a great way to create a population bottleneck. Good plan, that. No, it's not. Allowing trademarks and, registrations on particular seeds, and worse yet, allowing people to make the seed inert when they sell it to you so it grows one crop.
Yep.
This is disastrous, right? This, like, the long-term consequences of this, I guess it's why we do what we do in speculative fiction, right? Because we have that ability to look at the long view and go, the natural consequences of this is fucking horrible. Maybe we should reconsider this plan, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, clearly Foster feels as strongly about these issues as I do and is doing what they can to wake people up, and, you know, God's bless them for it.
Yeah. It's the amount of greed is just mind blowing. Like, I can't even, it's such not a part of my thought process, that kind of greed, I just can't even, I can't understand it.
I'm with you.
At what point are you unable to look at yourself in the mirror? Or are these people just complete sociopaths? Maybe they're all sociopaths.
Maybe.
I'm sure some of them are.
I'm looking at it that I feel you, right? About not being able to understand it. Like, you were saying that in the same way that I tend to say that, which is to say, not that, it's not a euphemism for moral indignation, right? It's what is going through your head?
Yeah.
It is what is wrong with your head that you would think that this was in any way a good plan for anybody or anything. I genuinely don't understand it. Yeah.
Got nothing. What are you reading right now before I go off the deep end?
I am reading Under Heaven by Guy Gabriel Kay. I've been meaning to read this for some time. This is my first of their books, right? So they've been recommended to me a lot.
That sounds really familiar.
It's a sort of a fictional China, like ancient China analog. It's not ancient China. There are distinct differences, but you can tell that this is what inspired it, and not claiming it's China either, right? So,
right.
Anybody worried about cultural offense, it's a fantasy world. It's clearly different. But basically it's based on, Imperial China, but it's got fantastical elements to it. Like in one of the early scenes of the book, the protagonist is doing a period of mourning. He's in an area which was a horrific battle. There are thousands of bodies that have never been buried. His father fought in this war. He went here when his father died to honor his father by burying as many of them as he could, right? Mm-hmm. And it's out in the wilderness away from the empire, and somebody comes to kill him. I'm not going to get into the reasons why. It's kind of the main driving plot of the book, but the ghosts, right, rise up and take out this assassin, right? Because he's been doing all this work for them, right? And it's just little elements of what is clearly fantastical stuff here and there, right? Where you're not really sure what is myth and what is real, but it, that was evident in terms of that was real, but does that mean everything's real? Like, they encountered someone that one of the people thought might be a kitsune, right? And, the protagonist is like, I don't know about that, right? So, really neat. It all has to do, the plot centers on the fact that the protagonist has been given an unusual gift for this service, which is to say, I think it's 1,000 basically Mongolian horses, right? Which were like the commodity in China. Like, they would do anything in Imperial China to get these horses because they were a superior quality. One of the reasons why the Mongols were so successful, right? So naturally, all the politics of the empire are coming to bear as people try to control him or get the horses, right? Which haven't even been delivered to him yet, because he's made it specific that he has to go and get them himself, right? To increase his chances of surviving long enough to get them, right? It's beautiful. The language is it's fine prose. The characters are interesting and believable. I'm invested, right? And it's this huge, thick book. I can't wait to see where it goes. So yeah. Great stuff. What are you reading?
I am reading. What am I reading? Oh, I know what I'm reading. I'm reading our friend Ricardo Victoria's latest book, the third one in his series. And
oh my God, he's got a third one already. I am so behind.
Yep.
I still haven't had a chance to read a second. And the first was great. Loved it.
And yeah, actually, he's done with the fourth one. It's just not out yet.
Oh my God. I'm sorry, Ricardo. Please don't hurt me. No, he wouldn't. He's a darling. He would never hurt a fly, I don't think. But, you know, but I'm sorry. I really do want to. The first one was excellent. Like, you know, especially like it had that video game anime quality to it. Right.
Yeah.
But the plot was deeper than that, which is, excellent stuff. Yeah. Go get it if you can.
Yeah. And Ricardo, you know, I know you listen to this podcast sometimes. I think you should send encouraging emails to Diane.
Not emails. I don't answer emails. Send me Discord messages.
God.
I answer them. Yeah.
I'll help you track her down, Ricardo. Don't worry.
Yeah, and nag me. Yeah. Honestly, give me an ADHD poke.
Yeah.
Like that's what I call it.
I'm actually behind on reading it too. But the third one, so I'm probably about 50 pages in right now, and it focuses on the female characters more than the male characters this time. And I can see he's been going kind of like around the group and focusing on different people within the group for each novel, right? Even though they still take place like chronologically.
Right.
But it kind of like, then each book he kind of like jumps around to a different person or two and focuses on their story more.
Right.
So I don't have a ton to say about it because I'm only 50 pages in, but what else am I reading? And I'm reading two other things with my kids right now. I am reading Phantom Tollbooth with my youngest one, which is apparently a classic. Have you ever read that one? Have you heard of that one?
I have not.
It's kind of old. It's from the 60s, and we're not that far into it, to be honest with you. Basically, there's this kid who's just uninterested in everything, and suddenly a phantom toll booth appears in his room, and he goes through it, like in a toy car, right? And then he goes to like this land where there's lots of puns. For example, there's a watchdog who is like literally a dog watch. Like he's like got like half of his body is a watch,
Neat.
sort of, right? And then, so we're not super far into it. So I'm reading that. I'm also reading, and I'm wondering if this is going to bring back memories for you. I am also reading the first Dragonlance novel with my older son.
I have indeed read at least the first 3 Dragonlance novels. Yeah.
Yeah. For me,
because everybody did, because we were all gamers, right? So
Right.
we were all playing Dungeons and Dragons, and we all read it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Cool. Good stuff to start your kids on there.
Yes. Those were a big deal for me when I was a kid. I mean, me and my friends loved those books. And I read more beyond the first 3. I read probably 15 of those things before I got tired of it. He's into it. And do you remember Raceland, the mage?
Of course I do. Yep.
Yeah,
A classic character. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. We read the first chapter with him. My kid's just like, what? What is this guy about?
It's good.
I had to dodge questions about Raceland for the rest of the night after that.
Nice. Yeah, you gotta. Raceland's a good lesson actually for kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he's not a nice guy.
No.
He's likable, but he's not a nice guy. Yeah.
Yeah. We're still discovering things about him, so it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. Good stuff. Tracy Hickman was at World Building Con just recently, which is a thing that World Anvil puts on every year. He's amazing to listen to. Go check him out.
Interesting.
Like if you get a chance to hear him speak. And he's obviously one of those guys who genuinely loves the community and the audience and does what he does because he's a fan too, so yeah, it was awesome.
Maybe I should say something. So I have something up my sleeve regarding.
Do you now?
Regarding the Dragonlance novels. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid to say it because nothing's official yet.
Okay,
so
don't say
I'll
it
just
for the
say
sake of the podcast, and you can give me hints after. But yeah, fair enough. You got some things happening. Okay, I'm intrigued, and I'm sure that everybody else is too, because, yeah, those are most of us, at least in my generation, those were formative fantasy books for us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Hopefully it happens. Two really quick things I want to say before we close up. Number one, for any youngsters who might be listening to this, Dragonlance was a D&D universe, kind of. And honestly, it made D&D super popular because these books, at least the first three, were just super well written. And
they were excellent.
Anybody who was a nerd back in the 80s and 90s, mid 80s to mid 90s, I'd say,
yep,
read them. If you were a nerd, you read the Dragonlance novels, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like, it was like a rite of passage.
It's kind of like if you were around when Game of Thrones was airing, if you didn't watch Game of Thrones, you were missing half the cultural conversation.
Right.
So you read them whether you wanted to or not, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they were worth it. They were, very formative for that generation, for sure.
Exactly. And then the other thing I will say is, again, Achevwe told me I am the best father in the world for reading these with my kids and getting them for them. So I'm going to pat myself on the back for that.
He's right, That's well done, Dad. Good job there.
I am patting myself on the back right now.
Do you do that? You deserve it.
All right. Well, let's call it. Thanks everybody for listening. We appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us. Sorry, this episode's probably going to be a little over time. I'm certain. I can't imagine what Alan's going to cut. And thanks for bearing with us because we had a great time making it. See you next time.
We are keeping hope alive, one episode at a time. If This Goes On, Don't Panic is edited by Alan Bailey and produced by Ken Schrader. Our theme music is by Father Flamethrower. Additional music is by Christopher Snydrowski. Outro music by Sable Aradia. Intro by Dave Robinson. A special thanks to our guest, Claire Rudy Foster. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you again soon.